Welcome to Gadgets for Families, the tech show with the two tech grandpas, but it's not your grandpa's tech show. I'm your host, Jay Benjamin.
And I'm your host, Greg Cunningham. Thanks for joining us today for episode 37.
Greg, do you remember your first road trip? I know you camp a lot, right? Maybe not as much as you want to, but still a lot. And do you remember what your first road trip was? Not your first road trip, your longest road trip.
Yeah, so when I think road trips, I've got two that come to mind. When I was just after I graduated high school, before I left on my mission,
Hmm.
we drove from Utah to Wisconsin to see a friend of ours, and we were there less than 24 hours and drove
Hmm.
back. And if I remember right at the time, with speed limits, it was a 27-hour drive
Wow.
each way. And so we were actually there less than half of the time we spent on the
On the
road.
road,
So,
right?
yeah. And then, the other one I think about is um, we drove Texas to Utah
Hmm.
several times. And that one's about 21 hours, depending on, where you're going to.
Right, right. Yeah, that's both pretty long hauls. So I forgot to mention last week that I had a road trip coming up, and it just so happened to be one of the biggest road trips of my life. Now, I'm not a truck driver, you're not a trucker. I know there's a couple of friends of mine that are truck drivers that listen to the show, and this is nothing to them. Right?
Right.
They spend a lot of time on the road, and our show is one of the ones that they listen to. But for me, this one was 20 hours there, plus a day in Phoenix, and then 20 hours back. And to date, that was the longest road trip that I've had. So with spring break right around the corner and summer quickly approaching right behind that, lots of people are going to be taken to the road, renting vehicles for family trips, vacations, going to visit family, things like that. So today I wanted to talk about just some road trip essentials that made my trip a lot easier. That made things a lot easier on me. Um, we'll talk about that, and then in the post show, I figured we'll talk about the very disappointing news that you sent me about
Mm.
product releases, Apple's product releases in March. And if you're wondering, well, why is that disappointing? Stick around for the post show. I got some very bad news for you. Actually, we'll talk about it briefly in the news update later in the show, but we'll go into our feelings about what's going on here in the post show. What do you think about that, Greg?
That'll be fine. Yeah, I don't know. March is going to be insane. So
Yeah.
let's just leave it at that.
Yep, yep. So before we jump into all that, our essential road trip tips and recommendations, I wanted to just take a sec to say, don't forget to do all the things. The follow, like, share, subscribe thing. It only takes a couple of seconds, but it helps us out a lot, and also it lets us know what you guys think about the show. If you are liking a particular episode type or want to hear more, definitely jump in those comments, send us messages, and let us know what you think. We'll appreciate you sharing, and we'll respond back as quickly as we can. So let's just jump right into today's topic. Again, we're going to talk about our road trip essentials, right? And this is for people that are, um, again, they're renting vehicles and or going in their personal vehicles, and they're driving for multiple hours a day to get to the wherever their destination is. So this is just some of the tech that I feel that people should use. They definitely made my trip easier. Greg is again is I'll say he's our certified road king on the show. I mean he is on the road a lot, going to different campgrounds and different areas. And while I've been known to take a break from the high seas because I love cruising, and quick side note on that, the cost of the 1 day in Phoenix plus the trip was the equivalent to a 5 day cruise. I'm just saying.
For one
I'm just
person?
saying. For no, for
For the whole
it
family?
for the whole family, for all four of us, it was the same
Ugh.
price. So yeah, so
Yeah.
cruising is yeah. I'm not gonna go into my rant about
Well,
cruising. Yeah, I
I
know
mean,
how
I'll
much
get
I
you
love it.
now that you got off on a tangent. So, I'm flying down to Houston, and we're hoping to have a surprise for folks that listen to the show while I'm down there. But Dustin's
Yep.
got his concerts one week and his graduation a week or so later. Of course, they couldn't pack it into to one, and absolutely, it's crazy how much more expensive it is
Yes.
for me to get on an airplane, have a hotel just for a couple of nights.
Yep.
So, like
Yep.
the first trip, I think I could stay. So, we're going to southern Utah for spring break. I'll
Mm-hmm.
be down there for 10 nights, 9, 10 nights, whatever it is, right? Plus, it's a 4 hour drive, pulling the trailer at 7 miles a gallon.
Yep.
So, count in the gas, count in the overnight stuff, and I don't even hit our airfare
Right.
to go to Houston. And
Right.
that doesn't count the fact that we're staying in a hotel rather than I'm getting a little nervous because like some of the campgrounds are hitting $55, $60 a night, but
Yep.
compare that to a hotel, right?
Yeah.
Which is
Right.
way more expensive than that. Plus, if I'm in my camp trailer, you have food, so you're not going out to eat, blah, 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 blah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, when we bought our first trailer, we told each other, okay, we're going to buy this trailer. We didn't want to have to finance it, but we did. But we said the reason we're doing this is because this is going to be our vacation. This is how we're going to
Right.
travel. And so we've had, since we bought our first trailer, we've taken 4 anniversary trips, and they've all been in the trailer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm with you. We find the value into the things that we love. So whenever we have to do something other than that, other type of vacation or some kind of business trip or something like that, um, yeah, those costs kind of really add up. They
Yep.
really kind of add up. So
If Karen could have come with me, we would have pulled the trailer down for those first set of concerts and
Mm-hmm.
just stayed in the Houston area, clear through until he graduated. But she can't take the time off then. So anyway, but
yeah.
here's the other thing about this. I really like this topic today, Jason. I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking about this. We're gadgets for families, right? A lot of the stuff
Right.
that we want to do, we want it to be around helping your family specifically get more out of life. Now we joke around about we have clients outside of our family and all that kind of stuff. But if I think about most of what's in this list today, if you are a set of grandparents
Mm-hmm.
that are going to take their kids on a road trip for more than 2 hours, right? These are the things that you're going to want to have there.
Yeah.
And this is about the family stuff. If it was just me, if I was, a trucker getting in there, I think this list would be a little bit different. But the way I'm thinking
Yes.
about this list is somebody traveling with young kids.
Right. Right. So you're right. It would change depending on the destination and stuff like that too. But yeah, I figured let's just round robin this thing, and
Okay.
we'll share our picks for what we feel are some of the most essential road trip tech. So my first pick is obviously going to be chargers, right? And not just any charger. I'm putting the emphasis on long chargers and those multi-tap um, charging ports, right? I forget what they call the little port. We call it the old cigarette lighter port, right? Even
Yeah.
though, especially in rental cars, there's no
It's a
smoke
12
in it.
volt. It's a
Yeah.
12 volt port. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. A 12-volt port. So just in the old days, they used to stick cigarette lighters in them and pop it out and light their cigarettes or whatever. But yeah, 12-volt port. So the adapters that go in is some of them have multi-port, right? I had a couple of them that had a USB, a regular USB, and a USB-C port on it. They were high voltage to take advantage of most of that 12 volts. Not your cheap gas station. The ones you pick up at the counter that are really cheap, will really only just charge your phone. So you need something that's going to charge multiple devices at the same time, like tablets and things like that. And also, too, again, I put the emphasis on long chargers because renting vehicles, if you're traveling in your own vehicle, you know where all of your charge ports are. But when you get in a rental, you don't know, depending on the manufacturer, they'll put some way in the back, for camping and stuff like that. You hook up inflators and things like that. They'll have some in the back seat that are accessible to that second row. And most of them are found in the front seat, of course, on the dash with everything else. But you don't know. So you want to have some pretty long chargers. And I'm not saying anything outrageous like 10-foot chargers or something like that. But, 6 feet or something like that are usually
Not the one
standard.
that comes in the box that's 3 feet.
Right. Not the 3 feet one. So you'll have to order a one on Amazon or Best Buy or something like that. So just usually a little longer. Um, but yeah, definitely go with the brands we recommended in the past. Don't go with your bundle of 15 chargers for $10. Those are not going to be any good for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So they won't last a trip. So long chargers, multi-tap ports. That's going to be my first pick. So
Yeah, I would add on to that, and this isn't mine, but I would add on to that possibly some external batteries too, just in case, right? I mean,
right, just in case. Yep.
and then this does tie in. So my first one would be their own device or distraction
Mm-hmm.
and headphones, their own set of headphones, even for little kids. Now,
I
when
didn't
we,
mention that, but yes, that saved
yeah,
us from having to listen to my son's nonsense that he listens to.
yeah, yeah. And
He
here's,
had his
so
AirPods.
I'm not saying every kid needs a device like their own tablet or kind of stuff, but that is kind of nice. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you also have to figure out if your kids are going to get car sick. So we have this balance on our grandkids of do they get car sick or not. But even on an hour and a half to 2 hour trip to my mom's house, we want them to have something to entertain themselves. And whether that be they're just listening to their own music or whether they're watching a show, like my daughter's van has the drop down TV screens and she's got the
Right.
wireless headphones that each of them can listen to that. The sanity from that is for the driver, right?
Right.
Is that the driver can put whatever they want on the stereo system and everybody else can listen to whatever they want to listen to. And you know,
Mm-hmm.
if they're super little kids and they can't manage a tablet or a phone or something like that, then you've got the little drawing tablets that you draw and press a button and then they erase, or
Right.
their books or whatever the case may be. But so that's why this one is sort of technical but not completely right. Everybody needs their own thing,
Yep.
especially if they're not going to enjoy what the driver is wants to listen to, right? And
Right.
so like on those trips from Houston to Utah, it's 21 hours and I would drive anywhere from 13 to 17 of those hours, right?
Yep.
And we would drive straight through. So
Yep.
especially once Dustin could drive. That was the first time Dustin ever drove the pickup truck. And it's the first time he ever drove on a hill. And the first time it started to climb a hill and auto shifted down gears, he was like, what's
Yep.
going on? He didn't understand what
Right.
was going on there. But so that part of that is for the driver's sanity. Everybody needs their own stuff. If they have their own devices, get them their own headphones. We've
Yes.
got cheap plug-in, but they also can Bluetooth. We just got cheap plug-in headphones for the grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
And now our youngest grandson that's going to turn 2 this month is asking where his headphones are. So I guess for his birthday or for Easter, Grandpa's going to have to get him his own
Yeah.
pair of headphones, right? So
Yeah.
that's
And
my
they love
first
their
one.
own stuff too. They
Yep.
they love when they have their own stuff. So,
Yep.
and you're right. You mentioned a good point. It doesn't have to be technical, right? We're not saying give everyone an iPad or a phone, because my daughter, when she wasn't on her iPad, she had a little drawing pad, and she would draw out little sketches and stuff like that to keep herself occupied. And yeah. So it doesn't have to be technical, but everyone needs their own. So next for me is entertainment. Now, this is mostly for the driver again, and I don't just mean just jump into the car and fire up Pandora and hit the road. I mean, have like pre-selected entertainment for yourself, right? You know your trip is coming up. This should be one of the things you're planning. And I'm saying like playlists of music, podcasts, audiobooks, anything that's going to keep you entertained and focused on the road, right? Nothing too distracting, nothing too if you're listening to a horror novel, audiobook or whatever and you're all into it, maybe that's something that you don't want to listen to while you're driving, right? If it just distracts you from whatever you're doing, but it's easy listening, like they
Yeah.
say, easy listening, something that's going to help you focus on your signs and your directions and things like that, and still stay entertained.
Yep. For this drive
So,
to southern Utah, I'll probably save up the 3 or 4 tech podcasts that
right,
I listen to
right,
every week and listen to those. It's about a 4-hour drive, right? So not
okay,
terribly
not
long,
too bad.
but
Yeah,
long enough. But I need to pay attention. So I'll probably save up all those podcasts, but I will not. I have one podcast that I use as part of my personal study, that I like to take notes on and
Right.
do that kind of stuff. I am not going to listen to that one on the road.
Yeah.
Not if
And it
I'm
makes
driving.
sense. It makes sense. So, and also too, I say playlists because you don't want to spend time having to skip or switch apps or anything that requires constant input from you, right? If
Yeah.
you're not a subscriber to the YouTube version, I forget the name of it. Is it YouTube Plus or YouTube TV? Whichever one
Yeah.
allows you to turn off your phone and still be able to listen. If you're watching YouTube or listening to music or videos on YouTube, you constantly have to skip ads or switch videos or something like that. You definitely don't want to be doing stuff like that. So, pre-selected playlists, again, put together a road trip list of media, a combination of iPads, books, or whatever it is that you listen to. So, for the family, we used Netflix. It allows you to download episodes of shows and certain movies and things like that. That always comes through for us, when cruising and things like that. Um, my daughter's iPad, my wife's phone, and yeah, you get to download the episode for I believe it's a few 48 hours or something like that, 72 hours or whatever the restrictions are, and I believe it's different for different shows too because she still had stuff on it from the cruise that hadn't expired. Um, my son, he downloads some of his favorite YouTubers, their videos. Some YouTubers have huge libraries of hours of content, which is apparently the name of the game nowadays. So they have whole seasons of their shows that whatever they're recording, whether they're pranking or talking about video games or whatever they're doing on YouTube these days, he downloads that. So um, for me, I usually start with my 80s playlist. Everyone loves the 80s, including the kids. We all listen to that music, and that's usually good to start the drive off with a few hours. Usually after the first stop, everyone goes to sleep. After that first Buc-ee's stop, they get their snacks and their drinks and things like
That's
that.
that's a whole other podcast
Right, right.
episode, Bucky's. And total side note, I do really miss having Bucky's. When we would go on scouting trips, we would
Right.
always stop at Bucky's, and we would lose the boys for an hour. But
Yeah.
some of the YouTubers that I follow for camping that are full-time RVers, they will do episodes for their first time
Yeah.
at a Bucky's, and it just blows their minds.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it is. It is a really great place, and the pricing I've seen of late has kind of crept up there because it started off, at least when I first started visiting Bucky's, really reasonable prices. So now they're kind of getting your average, Walmart type prices and things like that. But pricing aside, it still is a really good essential stop on any road trip, in Texas. So after that, after everyone knocks out, I like to listen to whole concerts. Right, I have Stevie Ray Vaughan live in Montreal, the music festival. BB King at the Royal Albert Hall. Johnny Taylor live in Dallas. Yes, these are all blues singers. I love blues music, but it kind of puts everyone else to sleep in the car. But I love these whole live concerts that just it's I just love that experience. I love the way they sing these popular songs live. So that always works for me. So that's just an example of some of the things that we use on the road trip as far as entertainment goes. So definitely get your playlist together. You're going on a trip. You have to check, your car. You have your checklist to make sure everything is packed. Make sure that this entertainment is one of the things that you include in that checklist.
yeah, and I think a pro tip there, I use my Apple Watch to switch like between playlists and stuff like that. Even though I've
Right.
got my phone now mounted on a MagSafe charger up where I can still see the road, all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. I use my Apple Watch because you can do raise to speak, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just much more convenient to deal with that. And there's a few other things like all the safety stuff, which we're not going to go into. Definitely follow the law and be safe on the
Yes.
road. Don't text and drive, all that kind of stuff. Turn on driving focus mode, do all those kinds of things. But the more you can set this stuff up in advance so that you can give the assistant simple commands to switch things using your
Yes.
voice, the better off you're going to be. My next one is around something to help the driver get some rest. So, um, This is big. If you're going to go on these long trips and drive straight through, I can speak from experience that
Hmm.
I prefer to drive, right? I just can't sit
Same
in the
here.
car and do nothing. Now, on some of our trips, like my wife will drive and I'll work, right? Do some stuff like that. But I can't do that for too long. I prefer to be in the driver's seat. But if you're talking about driving 21 or 27 hours or whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's just not a good idea
Yeah.
to think
And
you're going to
illegal
do
in
that.
some states.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we would leave at 3 a.m. so that we would get where we were going by midnight, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that was kind of how we would do this. But so that I would strongly recommend some noise canceling headphones. Some that are comfortable that when you're not driving, that you can put them on and tune out everything to hopefully help you fall asleep. If you fall
Hmm.
asleep to music, make sure you have that stuff set up for you, pillow, blanket, whatever the case may be, because if you're going to drive 15 of 20 hours, you want to take advantage of that 5 hours that you're going
Right.
to get as downtime. So make sure you've got that kind of stuff. And like I said, I just take my good headphones, I get in the back seat away from everybody, or as
Hmm.
much as I can anyway. If we're in the truck, that's kind of hard, but um and I tune everything out, put a pillow up, and go to sleep so that I can
Yeah.
get the rest. So that would be my next one, whatever it is, so that they can be fresh the next time they get behind the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. Good tip. So my last one is without a doubt Apple CarPlay. And we mentioned it before, you guys. We hadn't had a full episode where we talked about specs and things like that, but you heard us talk about it whenever Apple did an update to it. We'll mention some new features or whatever that was added. But it may sound crazy, but this is like a requirement for me, a deal breaker on renting a vehicle or whether it's from a rental place or Turo or some of the other apps that we use. Having CarPlay is up there with good MPG on the vehicle, right? It's a deal breaker. Now, CarPlay goes beyond just a Bluetooth connection to the audio system in the car. Um, even my wife's truck, it has, a Bluetooth connection in it, but it's not CarPlay. So this, um, it gives you customized controls of your iPhone on the screen on the car's built-in dash system. So, um, controls over apps, function of the phone, um, replying and viewing messages and things like that. It basically allows you to just connect your phone to a USB charger and put your phone down. There's no fiddling with your phone at all, which is important, right? So it gives you like quick, easy access to like GPS, music apps. You can even order a pizza from it with the my Domino's app was one of the apps that was on the first screen. And we didn't need to do it. And of course, if you're on the road, where would you meet the pizza driver? But you can order one a few miles down the road if you had to, you know what I mean, and just stop through, pick it up, pay for it, or it's already paid and just get back on the road.
Think about all the
But
money and time you could save at Bucky's if you could place your order in
right,
advance and just
a
pick it
lot.
up at a drive-through window.
A lot. Yeah, just pull up to the drive-through window and just grab it and just hit the road. Uh, so it again it limits that time with your eyes off of the road. You know what I mean? It's and that's what you want to do. Limit those distractions, limit your time picking up your phone and having to, like I say, skip ads or respond to messages and things like that. CarPlay is perfect for that. The interface is familiar, right? It basically looks like your phone in landscape mode with only the essential apps that you need. Um, Depending on the system in the car, the touchscreen it functions just like the phone, right? So there's just that light tap on whatever you need, it opens up and it displays the information that you need. So CarPlay is is definitely my number one pick. And I remember on my Christmas list for last year, if anyone was listening, even if you're in an older vehicle which doesn't have Bluetooth, it doesn't have um, a navigation screen or anything in it, you can buy a third party standalone CarPlay system for as little as maybe like 50 to $60. I mean, and
Oh,
this
they
thing
have
is
some I should have sent you this link. Now I can't even remember where I saw it, but I saw a couple of new players in the market, and they had a 10-inch screen,
Nice.
which was wireless CarPlay enabled, and they had a
Yeah.
smaller one too. But yeah,
Yeah, that is awesome. Would you see that on Amazon?
no, it was an article somewhere.
Okay.
I'll never find it, but
Yeah. I'll look for it. I'll look for it. But yeah, that sounds really interesting. And if you don't, again, if you even have an older model vehicle that doesn't have any of that, it'll be worth it to look into that just to have on your daily commute to work, today every day, taking the kids to school or something. I mean, it really changes your whole car trip. Now, Google has something equivalent to that, right? It's Google
right.
Google Auto or something like that, which I'm assuming works exactly like or very similar to Apple CarPlay. So you don't necessarily have to have an iPhone to be able to take advantage of that. If you're in the Google ecosystem on Android, they have an equivalent to that. So definitely look into that. That is an essential road trip piece of tech that I think everyone should be taking advantage of. So
Yeah, no,
look into it.
I've just been playing around looking at 350s because if I get a bigger trailer, I got to have a bigger truck, right?
Right.
And one of the things I was looking at is, do they have CarPlay?
Yeah.
So,
Which I think they do. All newer models.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they are. Unless you're a Chrysler or a GM, right, who has said they're not going to do CarPlay, that are going to do their own thing, which is
Yeah.
lame. So,
Yeah. Whenever they try to move away from the herd and do something, remember Walmart, which I still don't think accepts Apple Pay. Right. Other
yeah,
stores
they
that
still don't.
started off originally saying that they wouldn't accept it, they've eventually started. I remember CVS and Walgreens, a few other stores that didn't that we usually shop at, eventually said, no, let's go
Yep.
ahead and let's go ahead and jump on board with this thing. So,
Yep.
but yep, Apple CarPlay. That was my last pick, Greg. What do you have next for us?
So I think my last one is kind of a set of things, and this is around knowing when you're going to have phone service and when you're not. So this is
Yes.
around, and this is not about can I download my media. You should have all the. Jason laughs at me because I buy the biggest phone storage I really think is practical for me. I don't get the terabyte because I don't need that, but I want all of my music on my device, and I
Yeah.
want all of my podcasts that I'm ready to listen to on my device, and I just don't want to have to worry about storage. And this is one of the reasons. When we would drive from Texas to Utah, depending on the route that we went, there were some areas where we absolutely had no cell phone service.
Yes.
I mean, even driving from here to my mom's, it's sporadic in the one canyon that we go through. And I know if you live in the big city, or like if you're in the San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Austin area, that kind of stuff, right? It's foreign to not have a cell phone signal. But I mean, there were places that we would go through that it was miles and miles and miles of absolutely
Yep.
nothing before you would get somewhere that was a town and there was no cell phone service, right? And
Hmm.
so knowing where you're going to have service, and there's a few reasons for this. Knowing where you're going to drop out, you want to make sure that you've got that route kind of planned out. So if you lose your GPS, right,
Hmm.
or if you got to plan out your gas route, you know when you're going to need gas. And I always worry about running out of gas in the middle of nowhere, so I'm prone to
Yes.
stop more often than I need to and fill up. It's also one of the reasons when I bought the truck that I have currently, I was happy that it has a 30 plus gallon tank instead of the typical 20 and
Yes.
change, right? And so kind of have that planned out. Know your route a little bit in advance. Know where you're going to lose cell phone signal. The carrier's cell phone coverage maps on their sites are pretty good.
Hmm.
And then, know when you're going to have your navigation, when you're not, know when you're going to need your navigation and when you don't. Now, that's a big thing. Turn off the navigation app if you know you're
Right, because
driving
it
for
drains that
200
battery.
miles
Right.
on the same freeway, especially if the kids are hogging the charger and
Yep.
yours isn't the one that's plugged in, because it will drain the battery. And even if you have navigation, because it's GPS based, right? When you don't have cell phone signal, that can drain it faster too. And if you're going to go for long stretches of time without cell phone signal, you need to do the safety things. You need to make sure people know where you're going, when you expect to be back in cell phone range. You
Yes.
need to pay attention to how long you're going to be out of cell phone range. If you're out of cell phone range for a couple of hours, you may want to turn off the cellular radio because it's going to keep trying to find a signal and drain your battery too. Now, if you're plugged in, I guess it doesn't matter, all that kind of stuff. So these are just the planning things that I think you need to pay attention to. And there's plenty of technology out there to help with this, right? I mean, you can, in Apple Maps, you can save maps offline, right?
Yes.
So you would have everything you needed to do that. Make sure you've got a navigation app that's got good coverage where you're going, right? That'll tell you where the gas stations are, where the food is, where, all of that kind of stuff is. So don't just leave this to chance. Do the planning ahead of time, and don't just assume that all of your technology is going to work the whole trip.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that is a good tip, because it reminded me of why I took having a MiFi, a mobile hotspot, off of the list, and because we spent so much time without signal, in Texas. Now, not hours, but we did spend, maybe pockets of about 15 to 20 minutes, with pretty bad signal and things like that, which is why our offline entertainment kind of came into play. So MiFi didn't make the list, but that could be another thing that, if you have that available to you through your carrier or whatever, it may be a good thing to take, but just wasn't necessary for us.
Yeah,
with the
if
offline
I was a
entertainment.
truck driver, I'd probably have 2 different carriers.
Yes.
Right. So a hotspot on one carrier and my cell phone on another
even
carrier,
if it's prepaid,
or even
if
dual
it's
SIM,
prepaid.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could do a bunch of stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, if you're brand new to road tripping, just know that cell phone signal is not the same everywhere, right? It's just not. So
yeah, and that gas thing too is a good tip. There were some pretty dead spots in Texas, and that was my first time going in that direction down I-10, and I cut it close once. And after that, I'm like, no more. Whenever we have our stop every few hours, I'm just gonna put gas anyway.
Yep.
That was I was pretty nervous. Not it's just like you said, just running out on a road where there's not even street lights. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a pretty big fear, with the rest of the family with me, the kids and everything. So yeah, that was 2 good tips in one. Definitely put gas even when you don't need it, and don't depend on your cell phone signal as much. So
yeah, I mean, when we moved back to Utah, we had all of the stuff that we didn't want to send in the moving semi, in the back of the truck and on a basket connected to the back of the truck, right? One of those big basket things. And I made room for a gas can on the basket because we were driving a long ways. We were going through area that we weren't going to have signal. And I just didn't know what the extra weight really was going to do to that. Because the truck will tell you how many miles you have left on a tank of gas, but it's not always the best gauge.
And that's
and
what
I worry
happened
about
with me.
and I worry, and just put all that stuff aside. Even if I could drive straight through on a single tank, I wouldn't want to, because I'd be anxious as all get out about it. It's just, hey, we're stopping to go to the restroom and grab some snacks. You all go in to start. I'm going to fill up the vehicle, and then when you guys come out, I'll go in and do my thing. And that's the way it works.
Anything else you want to add? Some few honorable mentions. You did mention one earlier that I it's not very techy, but it came in really handy for us, and that was blankets.
Yep.
I didn't want to when they were packing, and I'm like, come on, we have to pack light. We're only going for a day. And my wife was like, no, they want to bring their blankets and a couple of pillows. And I'm glad we did. I think everyone got some pretty good use out of those pillows and blankets. So that's one. It's a non-techie tip, but
it's a
really good idea.
Safety thing for the driver, in my opinion, because if they're all cold and want to crank up the heat,
yes,
the driver's sitting there starting to, the road, and it's dark and it's the same road especially if you're driving through West Texas, right? It's the same. The scenery never changes, right? And so you may not want the heat turned on because you want to be able to, again, safety first, stay
Yeah.
awake. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, those were our picks, everyone, for what we feel are some essential road trip, tech and things like that. So, depending on your destination and the time that you're going to be on the road, your mileage will vary. Do do do. See what I did there? Your mileage will vary.
Uh,
Hey, we have to have dad jokes on the show too, right? So, but the main
if
thing
dad
is,
jokes are corny, what are grandpa jokes?
I don't know, what are they?
I don't
Extra
know.
corny?
I don't know.
Cream corn in a
But I was
can?
just trying to think about people don't like dad jokes unless you follow their YouTube channels. So really, what are grandpa jokes? How much worse are grandpa jokes than dad
Right,
jokes?
right. So the main thing though we want for everyone is not just to be entertained while you're on the road, it's to be safe, right? Limit that those distractions. Limit that time when your eyes are off of the road and on a device or on a family or on something like that. When you're traveling at 80 miles per hour, at 3 a.m., the most important thing is to be safe. Be focused. Don't be fumbling with your phone, trying to skip songs and things like that. So, all that is just a recipe for disaster. So stay entertained, but don't be distracted. Use the technology to your advantage. Um, Map out your trip. Know where those gas stations are. Pay attention to those road signs, those exit signs to let you know what restaurants are available, what gas stations are available. And yeah, just be safe out there. Wherever you're going, even if your trip is 2 hours, 1 hour, whatever. I say 1 or 2 hours because we can spend that on the road here in Houston. That's not really a road trip for us, but anything 3, 4, 5 hours, whether you're going to the next city, going down to Galveston, whatever, just be safe on the road out there. So
Yeah, there's no
before we,
reason not to be anymore.
yeah,
There's plenty of tech and non-tech stuff to help you do that. So
yeah,
enjoy
yeah,
those road trips. So they stress me out, but I do really, really enjoy them. Karen and I are thinking for our anniversary trip, we might do a 2-week thing and not just go stay at a single campground for two
okay.
weeks. Go
Kind of
spend a
do a
few days
tour
one
over the
place, go
next two
somewhere
weeks.
else.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we'll see. I might have more updates after that trip.
yeah, sounds like fun. So before we end the show, we're going to cover a few things. We do got to jump into some news, and we usually have our story time and our catch up, but I wanted to do something a little different. So um, for our catch up this week, I wanted to just talk about the reason for the trip. Right, we went to Phoenix for one day and drove back, and again, we spent more time on the road than we spent there. But the reason why was it was my wife's graduation. So I know I mentioned talking about. You
Thumbs
have it
up on
turned
this
off?
one. No, I must not be doing it on this one. Let me see if I can. Will the reactions turn on? Nope, it doesn't have them.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mentioned before how she sacrificed a lot of her goals and dreams to start the family and to be married to me, and then we started our own business and things like that. And she sacrificed a lot. One of the things was her education. Well, about a year and a half ago, maybe it's 2 years ago, she decided to go back to school and finish her degree. Right, she wants to get back into the classroom and teach again. I met her. She was what do they call that? The teacher aide or admin or whatever they call the
right.
position now. At my oldest son's elementary school, back when he was in elementary. So we get married. We have more kids, and fast forward to 2022, she decides to go back and finish that, and to do the things that she set out to do in life, and she accomplished those things. She sacrificed a lot of. Man, I remember days where she worked with me all day in the shop and came in and she printed labels. We print our own labels and our own um, uh, different flyers and information and stuff. She runs the social media and stuff for the company, and doing all of that. And will come in, finish the day at like 10, 11 o'clock, and she'll come in, and I would see her at like 1 in the morning trying to finish a paper or something like that. Just like the commercial. They show the commercial for these different universities and stuff, and they always show the working parent that works all day and tends to the children and spends, all night working on their classwork and stuff like that. It was just like those commercials that you see. And she did that. And I just wanted to let her know that I was very proud of her. The kids are very proud of her, and we're excited to see what this next phase of her life, leads to. So just wanted to say congratulations, and I love you, and thank you for everything that you do for the family. So
Congratulations from the Cunninghams. Congratulations.
yeah, and she'll appreciate hearing that. She always asks about you guys too. She always asks about, this may be a little too personal to put, but how you feeling, if y'all are healthy or not, because she knows everything that y'all deal with as far as, viruses and sicknesses and stuff with the kids. So she always checks to see how you're feeling every week and how Karen's feeling every week. So yeah, she'll appreciate that, hearing that from you guys. All right, now let's finish up with some news. Let's catch up on some current stuff that we have here. So, Greg, you I didn't even catch this until you sent it to me, but we knew this was coming. The M3 MacBook Airs were quietly released on the App Store this week.
Yeah, so press release in Gurman's newsletter last weekend, he said that he didn't think they were going to have a March event for any of these new products that they're releasing, which is Jason's going to go on a rant about in the post show. And then lo and behold, already this week, we got the new M3 MacBook Air. So 13-inch, 15-inch. Put in the new M3 processor. Everything else is pretty much the same: colors, ports, form factor, all that kind of stuff, with one exception, and I find this fascinating. So one of the biggest complaints about the non-M3 Pro, so just the plain M3 version of the MacBook Pro, the 14-inch MacBook Pro, is that it could not support dual monitor. Right? So it could only support a single monitor. And so with this report, now they're saying that the M3 in the MacBook Air, and it's coming to the 14-inch MacBook Pro, again, regular M3 chip, not the Pro chip that I have, which will handle multiple, but that you can use a 5K and a 6K monitor with this at the same time if you close the laptop. So clamshell mode. So it still can only support 2 displays, period, end of story. But now at least you could have them be 2 bigger external displays instead of your Mac or your laptop display and an external display. So that was the only real change that I saw so far. But they're already out. I just saw a post on Thread. 9 to 5 Mac already has their new one. So
yeah. And during the Scary Fast event, I think we kind of mentioned that the new MacBook Air, we knew it was going to have an M3 update, but didn't really justify having a whole keynote about it. So I'm pretty sure there's some. I hadn't checked, but I'm pretty sure there's, the promo that they do, the nice video that they record, and a couple of ad spots and things like that. But for the most part, it hadn't changed much except for that processor.
Nope. And they also dropped spring colors for their iPhone cases and for their Apple Watch bands. Of course, I already went in and checked out the Sport Loop Apple Watch bands, and they're all the pastel, Eastery,
right? Not your green that you love, your forest green.
Not my thing. So yeah, it was just press release, and so just to briefly talk about that right now, they're still on tap for potentially some other Mac changes to the M3, like the Mini. We know our favorite stuff, which are the iPads, are still on tap. So the question becomes, are they going to do an event for these iPads? So if you want to hear more about that, again, stick around for the post show.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is going to happen this week is, and I just checked on my phone to see if it had dropped. Normally, if they're going to drop iOS updates, it's on a Tuesday, but we're still about 15 minutes away Usually they drop it at about 10 a.m. Pacific, so we're still about 15 minutes away. I don't see 17.4. And maybe we'll talk about it a little more next week. But
Yep.
just to give you an idea, the biggest updates in iOS 17.4 won't impact those of us here in the US. They will impact people in the European Union.
Mm-hmm.
We have not covered this. If you want to hear about all this other legal stuff that's going on in the European Union, I'd suggest either Connected or Upgrade or ATP. But they are allowing non-Apple app stores in the EU, and that's in order to comply with some laws that were passed in the EU, as well as things like alternative payment options, third-party browsers, NFC access, and some of those kinds of things. So those are all things that are part of 17.4, but you may not see them unless you're in the European Union. Now, everybody else is going to get, Jason might appreciate this one, gaming app changes. So streaming game apps are now allowed on the App Store. So like Xbox Cloud Gaming, NVIDIA's GeForce Now, they can be offered as standalone iPhone and iPad apps, that kind of stuff. There's 100 new emoji, messaging with Siri, podcasts and music are getting some updates, like transcripts for podcasts.
Oh, cool.
Yep. Some quantum computing security protocols for iMessage. So more security around iMessage. So the encryption that's around that.
Which is already pretty beefy security anyway.
So more on that.
But just better, yeah.
Yeah, trying to get ahead of hackers and stuff like that. The battery interface is going to be different in iOS 17.4, and I think we talked about this last week, where we talked about now they're saying that the iPhone 15 battery could go 1,000 charge cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Some more settings on stolen device protection. This is the one where you can set it to, if you're not at a familiar location, right, where you can set it to require Face ID or a delay. So that's going to be there. And then we talked about this one, Jason, next generation CarPlay support.
Yep.
So there's references to that in iOS 17.4 for things like car cameras and charging for your EV and climate controls and media and tire pressure and a whole bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, there's also some other stuff in there, but I think I'll leave that and then we'll call it good at that. But anyway, that should be coming out this week. One other big one, hand gesture reactions in video apps, which we know they shouldn't always be turned on. Apparently, they're going to give people more control over turning that off via API. So you could have a Zoom control that says turn off for all of your Zooms, which would be great because we use Zoom at church. And every once in a while, somebody from the pulpit is doing a thumbs up or something, and it pops up in the middle of a
it gives that
church
bubble.
meeting, which is not really appropriate. So,
yeah. And we said from the start that was going to be a distracting feature, especially during meetings and stuff. So, yeah, more control to be able to adjust that is a good thing.
Yep. So if they launch it this week, I'm sure we'll both have installed it by the time we have the show next week, and we can do a follow-up. But we'll put a link to the Mac Rumors article that's got the list of all the features in the show notes for anybody that wants it.
All right, folks. Well, that's the show for this week. Again, we're gonna keep going here shortly, but I just wanted to say thanks for everyone that's listening, and again, like we said, we're grandpas, we're fathers, we're husbands, we're always concerned with our families, so we just want you guys to be safe out there. Also, too, let us know anything that you use on your road trip that helps out a lot too. Jump in the comments on these videos and share that too. We'll mention it next week. And Greg, do you have a good closing for us?
No, but I do want to give you a preview for next week.
Yeah. What you got?
Next week in the post show, most likely, because it is ridiculously geeky. I don't quite know what the main topic is going to be yet. But in the post show next week, we are going to talk about Frankensteining a MacBook and an iPad, and then how Vision Pro plays into it. Now, this comes from one of the favorite tech guys that Jason and I both follow. We listen to a ton of his stuff. Yep. He is an iPad-aholic, or at least he used to be. So if you really want to if you want to go geeky with someone that has hardware and software wise
Mm-hmm.
combined his iPad and his Mac and then uses it with the Vision Pro, join us next week for that post show, because I think that's going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah. I look forward to that. So, well, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you guys. We'll see you on the road. Be careful out there.